Order. Mike, we'll start. We are a little bit late, but we will start. So welcome to the last meeting of 2020 for the insurance audit and risk. So thank you all for being here. A few still going to show up. I think just stepped out. So I have apologies from the Mayor and Councillor Tipanea. Any other apologies? No. No apologies?
John, I'll just note, as I said before, I get you 5:15 plans, so
I'll
join patience. I will leave.
I'll try to move along. Good place. Thanks for being here, Bruce. So can I have a mover for the I'll move. Apologies, do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Stratford, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I'll move the minutes, and that's item 4.1. Do I have a seconder for that? Thanks, Bruce. Are there any errors or corrections? Any corrections? Errors? No. All right. Everybody's happy with the minutes? I don't think I put that to the vote, do I? All in favour? Aye. Yes, carried. Now, what I'm going to do is just mix the agenda up a little bit, and the reason we don't have the CE or Farmer Volunteer, but we do have Erwin, and he's here to answer any questions. So I'm going to move to item 6.6, and if you can turn to that on your agendas, which is page 140. Will I do that? Can we have a mover and a seconder for that, please?
Kelly.
So, Kelly, yep, and Councillor Court, Councillor Stratford. Erwin, you want to just highlight some of the key highlights in that report, and then you can answer questions. You were expecting that?
Thank you, yes, indeed. Well, this is the...
Excuse me, Erwin, could you promise to stand here so we can get you on live stream, if that's okay?
Thank you. So, Finals Holdings, this is our quarterly report for the 3 months up to the end of September 2020.
Through the chair, just to remind you, we're publicly streaming it.
Yeah, so publicly streamed.
In which case, is Council comfortable about discussing the numbers in public?
Yes.
These numbers here, they're all in the public.
As long as you discuss
the whole report. So what's in the report? Yeah, whatever's in the agenda is fine. That's all.
And I just take some of your comments in the margins, but we're happy with the content of the public.
Thank you. Well, certainly. So, firstly, apologies that Andy is unable to be here to present the report this afternoon. He's tied up with other activities around the Innovation Hub. So, yeah, our report September 2020. Our performance for that quarter, profit $232,000, which is ahead of our budget by over $100,000 and similarly $100,000 ahead of the period last year. We're quite pleased with that result in light of where we've been with the effects of COVID on our business. In fact, we've been fortunate that some of the activities around the boatyard and the marina activities have been able to compensate for some of those lost income streams that we've had to account for around tenants and operators due to the lack of tourism activity. So that's been rather pleasing. We still have a couple of operators that are under a concession at the moment based on circumstances that they have. In the report, there are a couple of variances where we have against our budget in the periods. In that first quarter, we planned on selling some honey, which has not occurred, and it will occur in this next quarter and the following quarters. As I said, we've been fortunate that our loss of revenue due to COVID and lack of tourism has been offset by the activity around the marina and the boatyard, being $158,000 ahead of where we had expected it. employee wages and bits and pieces are down slightly against our budget for the period. So just to the next page, some of the achievements there. Obviously, the Bay of Islands Airport, we were very pleased to have been awarded a positive comment for our design and the facility that we've developed there at the airport. And I think those that have been using it today have found it extremely efficient and a very worthy investment for the district at the airport to visit our travellers, both domestic and international. Project updates to Honga, as we know, the Kawakawa project that's now been completed and basically operating, council library operating in there, and there's still some landscape work to be done around there, which we'll be away with the trust on over the next month or two. Manu Footprints, this is the Kupe project in Omapuri, opening of that on the 9th of December, so next week, which is again another great achievement, and we think another asset similar to Honga that we're very well proud of. Working away with the community in Paihia in terms of the design and communication of that design to Whanau Holdings for the Paihia waterfront development, particularly around that foreshore aspect of it, where there was an opportunity for community input into that design, the layout and the features that may participate in that. Just completed the fitness trail at Opua from Keller Street down to the marina, which we've been talking about for some time. Also during that last period, we've had commitment from the government for PGF funding for the Innovation Park, and as you will have seen, we've already commenced some physical work on the park in terms of contractors on there commencing groundwork in preparation for the summer season. Andy and the board have been working away with a number of tenants across a whole variety of businesses, food manufacturing, bioenergy, covered horticultural research and trade training. At the moment, the potential tenants are looking like creating around 250 new jobs and potentially 150 training opportunities as well. So that's where we currently are based for the moment on those. Obviously, in addition, we've been working on the other projects with PGF funding, be those around Napa Springs, as we talked about Mania, also alongside the council for Monganui, Pukanui, Nahe, and Rewa's Village with a local community there. And of course, we've just talked about Paihia Waterfront. So in that quarter, a pretty busy month in terms of starting to nail some of those projects that have been on the board and trying to now start see those through to their physical beginning. So unless there's any questions there.
Thank you, Ewan. So I'm delighted to see you actually get ahead of budget, given the impact on COVID and the reliance on some of the tourist-related industries you're in. That's a good achievement. So I've just got questions from my fellow councillors. None?
I was just going to ask one real question. I agree with both your comments and John's about the revenue stream line holding up. Are those savings and expenditure which really have given the real benefits to the bottom line? Savings?
Generally, yes, they are.
Yeah.
The employment benefits are permanent at this point. They won't be lost in the months ahead. And I think some of the other, in terms of the inventory area, is actually the fuel turnover in the marina, so that's just reflected in the sales and the activity of the business.
Well done. That's good. Good to know that way. That's great. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Can I just add to that? Sorry, I'm Cameron, Finance Manager. The only savings that's not going to continue is the employment benefit expenses that will be taken up as we've employed new people for the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's no better.
Yep, thanks. And also very pleased with the Innovation Enterprise Park as well. The number of potential jobs, that's great. Any other questions? Councillor Stratford? Smith. Oh, Smith, I missed it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For my audio. Erwin, thank you for this report and thank you for being here to speak to it. I'm just wondering if there's any commentary. Page 146 in the Statement of Financial Performance is a significant increase in donations above budget. and I was just wondering if you had any commentary around it.
Certainly. The answer to that is there's a timing issue that of that $22,000 a year, 21 of that is for our annual support of the Art Tucker Thompson Youth Training Program. And so that has just fallen in terms of a timing difference. So of that 22, 21 of that has gone to the Art Tucker Thompson Youth Training Program, where we sponsor the vessel for a 6 or 7 day youth journey, and the trust go around and pick up students from around the district to participate in that training program. So that's that.
Thank you. No, John, did you want to?
Sorry, I didn't get the opportunity to ask you this before this session, Erwin, but the rental income, just noting the extraordinary offer that FNHL made to 100 or so tenants that they have to give some rent relief during the post-COVID downturn. How come, I'm thinking about timing with this quarter, but how come there's only a 1% variation after all of that? Did not many of them take up the offer?
So we made the offer to the tenants for that period of April and May, and most of them took that up. And from the period from the 1st of July onwards, Tim, you can give me the exact split on that.
There's only about 30 tenants but it was all budgeted for, so that's why there's not a large variance.
And
your financial year.
so your 2nd of June was a financial year, and that's when most of the concessions were taken up. But we do have 2 tenants at the moment that are still on a concession, and we have 3 water-based operators that are on a concession compared to what their normal fees would have been this time last year.
Yeah.
So the effect of those rent concessions were actually in the June 20 books, not in this
Majority.
quarter. Majority.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And through the chair, can I just acknowledge Kevin for the board? Thanks for backing up that team.
Yes, thanks, Kevin.
Yes.
I have one quick question, Erwin, and that is just looking at, which is on page 143, COVID-19 lockdown and economic outlook, which is great. And of course, as we know that there was a lot of tourist, if you like, or visitor activity coming out of Auckland, so we did quite well up here. What is your expectation on those, bit crystal ball gazing, for the coming year? Is it going to be similar, or is it?
Boating activity is at 45% in the bay, so we're hoping it's going to be better.
So as Kevin just said, the marina aspects of it and the domestic tourism aspects of it, which is the boats on the water, that is right up there. So that has been a benefit that we've seen. Also, we were a bit lucky that we had a number of overseas yachts that were unable to leave or decided not to leave. So that's helped our occupation over what would normally be a quiet time for the marina over that July and August. With a lot of our tenants, they are able to service the domestic market in terms of the restaurants and those sorts of things, so they are still able to meet their commitments in terms of rents and outgoings. But as I say, it's the bigger ticket items like the tour operators on the water that we're seeing them talking to us about ongoing concession.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to put it to the vote now. We have a mover and seconder. We're receiving the report from Farmer Holdings. All in favour? Aye. Against? No. Thank you. Thank you. You may go. Thank you very much.
Well, you can stay and watch.
And you can go. I'm going to now come back into the order of the agenda, which is item 5.1. And can I have a mover and a seconder? Recommendation to remove the 008, which is our risk, out of our risk register, the civil defence risk from the organisational risk dashboard, which is great to see. So, Tanya, do you wish to speak to it?
Very happy to speak to it. Very good to see you. There's been
Table to income goes to the trust.
This risk is about the risk of not being able to stand up an emergency response team for a number of days or weeks, never envisaging months, which we did. There's been a lot of work put into training staff, so there are a lot of staff now that are SIMS trained, and we've got a manager that's responsible for civil defence So we, having trialled how long we could stand up a emergency response for through drought and COVID, we felt it was opportune to rescore the risk and look at removing it from this dashboard. It will sit in the group risk register for infrastructure and asset management, and will be reviewed there. What I would find interesting would be to understand whether the report meets your needs in terms of assurance moving forward, that risk is being managed appropriately, and if this doesn't, what can we furnish to give you assurance that there are controls in place and that those controls will be effective.
Thank you, Tanya. Bruce?
Yeah, Tony, can I just check, after our workshop session this morning, what is the nature of the risk that we're covering? I'm going on looking at page 17 and the risk description, which is a risk to financial capacity and public health and safety just as a repeat of the storm, which presumably means that we aren't able to respond to the events.
Yes.
If that's the nature of the risk.
Yes. So
I was just wondering, actually, in light of clearly events which are only unfolding, but which I think we should all take close interest in with the Kāri White Island prosecutions, whether our tolerance around health and safety risks, the public aspect, which is what we say is the risk description, is right now. This is the problem, risks being live. And I'm just wondering whether the risk around us being able to have an appropriate CDEM might not be such a good thing now if we have got a heightened sense of public health and safety given Kāri White Island. Maybe too early to say that, but maybe that we need to think about this in 6 months' time once we've found the outcomes. There are going to be outcomes quickly of the court cases, but I just wonder whether we've got our bearing right there at the moment.
my view on this is that actually it would be of value to restate that risk more clearly.
Yeah.
Because the way this risk is written is very open to interpretation. And I think a risk statement along the practice that I took you through this morning would help clarity and would help understanding the treatments that we needed to put in place. Where the information around this risk in the original description was that was around not being able to stand up an EOC for a length of time.
Which is fine, but again, I think, you start thinking about the impacts and we think across our estate there. Look, I'm comfortable in that John, that this be relegated from our view, and I think you've made the key point that it's not actually taken right off our risk antennae, which will be managed as an operational matter. I just would like to reflect that actually as we, probably with all our risks, but as we see what comes through the Kāri White Island, it might be that we need to reassess this one in particular, given it has an impact on public health and safety.
Thanks, Bruce. There is the government themselves, just can't remember where the news item was that I saw, but they are reassessing that whole space, not only with White Island, but with standing up emergency civil defence groups, and they have put some, they're about to make some changes there, which is mitigating against risk and various other things for volunteers that are involved. So it is a space that's under flux, but I take the points and I'm comfortable with it to be taken off. It doesn't disappear. It's still there, and yes, we should be considering, as with all our risks from time to time. Any other comments from Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tanya, thank you for this report, and thank you also for the workshop this morning. It's great to see the commitment to making sure that elected members are understanding fully this side of the organisation. I think it's really important. My question is around, in response mainly to the one that you have posed to us about information in the report. And my question is, if this will be continued to be measured under the IAM's group risk register, what is the trigger point for a report to come back to us if it needs to come back onto the risk dashboard?
The escalation process is around the rescoring of that risk and then the general manager's understanding of what their group are doing and whether they feel that that needs to come up. So that's where we're sitting at the moment, is very much around our subject matter experts identifying through those questions that we have got them thinking about that risk needs to be rescored and escalated.
Yeah. Any other comments from me, Councillor Stratton?
I have a bit of hesitation because I have seen over the last 10 years where events where the council had processes in place and then a new person has moved, changed things around, destructured a department or whatever had happened, and so there wasn't the systems in place. But yeah, since 2014 there have been major improvements, and I guess I just want to make sure that governance do have oversight on civil defence emergency management, because I see my communities affected and the whole district gets affected by floods or cyclone now and again. And I just worry that, I think that we should still see a report on this, like at least once in our triennium, if it's not being escalated from IAMS. Yeah, that's where I sit. And actually around the 2014 changes, there were invites from elected members to go to the Civil Defence Forum annually. That doesn't happen. I think it's possibly only Councillor Collard that gets invited, but it used to be everybody back in 2014. And they're just, I don't want to lose the importance of this, how civil defence emergencies affect our organisation, and I don't want to see a deprioritisation of resourcing, with a change in us or any senior management staff members. Yeah.
And it's about the mitigations and reducing the risk level. But Andy, you've got to.
Yes, through the chair, I fully agree with Tanya's view around redefining the risk. And I would refer to elected members to the fact that we have a shared service arrangement with Northern Regional Council for civil defence, so it is not necessarily an in-house FNDC service that we do provide. We do participate in the joint Northland response, so we have, as written, we do have the whole of the resourcing on civil defence across Northland to respond to declared emergencies. On top of that, we, as has been mentioned, we have since trained staff, and we've just appointed a second local controller who is in-house. So we have now fully resourced our input into the shared services arrangement, and as defined, as the risk is currently defined, and I think that's the valid question today, it can be demoted because actually we have fully resourced to the expectations of the shared service arrangement. I think what I'm hearing, there may be another risk that elected members may wish to look at. But as we stand in terms of the risk as defined, then I believe we are okay. We also note that Councillor Collard is our portfolio holder for civil defence, and the civil defence team have done a number of presentations to elected members outlining the work that they're doing and the resourcing they have. Yeah, that's really just an update from my side.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Stratford. Yeah, I do think we should be looking at how we redefine that risk, but I agree agree with the assessment that staff are given here that would be demoted, if you like, at the moment, the way it stands.
Councillor Smith's trying to get back in, Chair, if that's possible.
She just went offline, you say?
No, she was trying to make another point.
All right, Councillor Smith, you'll make the last comment then. You have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for a second. Just coming back to my point and the point that Councillor Stratford has raised. While I'm comfortable with the de-escalation of it, I would prefer that there remains some kind of reporting expectation, even if that is on a 3-yearly basis. I'm happy to take guidance as to what that looks like, but I'm not entirely comfortable with the only mechanism being discretion of the technical experts. So I'd just like to plant that seed with committee and perhaps ask for you to consider that.
Yep, I think that's been taken on board. Remember, the function itself, as I understand it, and Andy, you can correct me, is the function is stronger than it was before. So that's the, and reporting on that aspect of it, maybe that's something that's required, and therefore the risk that we're facing is lower, and that's why we're lowering it. Andy, did you want to comment?
So a couple of things there. Yes, I agree. We now have the full resources of all civil defence staff from across Northland to respond to an emergency incident. And I would also just refer you to the end pages of the Island Business Report that always contains a section on civil defence.
Through you, Chair, if I might, and if with Sean's indulgence on this one, I do wonder if, and I think we're talking about two related matters here. One is around specifically around risk, but the other is around a genuine interest that members quite rightly have in civil defence. And I do wonder, Sean, if perhaps an annual workshop led by civil defence, just for members' information, bringing them up to speed with what's happening, might be useful.
Yep. Well, yeah, we can do that. It's actually off topic. We're dealing on the risk one, and that can be done through I don't know, through the infrastructure team. It's mostly to do with that. Okay. So
that helps with Will's comment from Councillor Collard as well. Committees, obviously, other options there.
And that we can discuss offline. So the item is we're going to move in a second. I'm just going to put it to the vote now. All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? None. Carried. We move now to item 6.1, and that's the December Risk Management Report. And that's on page 22. On the first on my device. And do I have a move a second for that? Councillor Stratford and Bruce, thank you. I'll take it as read. And we have Sonia to answer any questions. So questions? No questions? Bruce. It's this risk workshop.
It's a really important paper. I can't let it go without and I was for two reasons. One, I do appreciate the chance that the quarterly we get to see all these mapped out, Tanya. So well done. I repeat my point. We do have the health and safety and vulnerability one, DARE 003, and I've already made a point about that, so I won't directly repeat it. I was interested in the emergent risk, which I was speaking to Tanya before we had the meeting. It's really important to me because I think actually putting forward it really helps. And I was interested in the extending the government procurement rules. I must confess I'm a wee bit short on knowledge on that, so I was grateful to read it. And I had a discussion yesterday with Karen Wilson around sustainable procurement and where we're going here, which has always excited me as a really positive. What interested me was, and given Karen and us, me only having a short time, I didn't have a chance to really explore how that helps us. and I'd be interested to know, doesn't have to happen today, but I'd be interested to know how good initiative in sustainable procurement, which aspects of social procurement, all that grammar is actually fitting in with and aligning us in advance of the requirements. I don't know if that might be, it's sort of an open question. Will, I don't know if there's an answer to that at this stage, but I think it's one that is worth exploring because we are investing a bit to have our own sustainable procurement. Yep. And I'd like to think that we're in line with what's happening. Well, we're probably in advance of what these guys are saying to us.
Happy to offer a lead on that, and Jamie might want to jump in on it. As members will recall, our chair, going back some 9 months ago, quite longer than actually, a year ago, led a visit down to Auckland to look at the Southern Initiative. Since then, the Chief Executive has seconded Caroline in to take the lead role in developing what was initially called social procurement. Councillor Clendon asked Council if we could rename it sustainable procurement, which we now have. Caroline's been doing a lot of work in this space. She's reported back to members relatively recently about progress. She's put together now a toolkit, and one of the issues that SLT will be grappling with over the next few weeks is how can we make this toolkit a reality? How can we hand it over to Andy and other senior managers who are involved in the procurement of goods and services? How can we ensure it's not just the big boys who win contracts, but that we can, the mom and pop companies can also benefit? And how can we ensure that our communities get some leverage in terms of training and employment opportunities? That's the big challenge we now have. How can we turn this theory into practice? And we think we've got an agenda for that, but that will be rolled out shortly. Jamie, could you assist further?
I think you did really well. We've got nothing more to add.
Well, through the chair and through, we'll just elaborate on that, but in practical terms, this elected membership has got the bit in its teeth on driving income into small to medium enterprises locally, and that involves some expedience which this committee will be interested in, and which the senior executive's got some appetite for. And the sorts of things that we've ended up doing is just pulling 40 companies into this room, and saying, right, there's a whole lot of money coming down the line that we didn't expect. This is way premature. We're telling you to go and get equipment and train your workers up. And by the way, here's Northtec sitting over here, and here's MB, and here's TPK, because they might be able to support you. And we're just going to give you fair notice, especially for the major companies that are in the room. We'll be doing some shoulder tapping in direct awards, which is some of it will be contestable, but we need to get this shovel-ready money spent right now. And by the way, this is part of a wraparound service which isn't in anyone's books. So all of a sudden we've got this deeply practical but slightly high-risk approach that certainly doesn't conform with the Crown's procurement processes. So it gives me the heebie-jeebies, Bruce, when the Crown-centric, risk-averse, one-size-fits-all procurement manual, and I've been part of that buying ships in defence, is forced onto small organisations like us, where social procurement's the name of the game, and getting mum and dad operators with a bulldozer and 8 workers into business. So I'm not sure I've said anything that Will hasn't just said, but it's very real and very pithy for us, and we just can't see the advantage of buying into someone else's manual about how we procure when we've got so many fresh initiatives right at our fingertips right now. So whether this is forced on us or not, quite another question, and what do we lose if it is the other. There's a lot of bureaucracy in the Crown system that we'd just rather be able to work around in a more local and sensitive way.
But thanks, Bruce, it is a good point. In fact, it's one of the ones that I've certainly highlighted as well for the same concerns that were there. The other one, of course, is central government 3 water reform program, which, if you look at the potential outcome from that, could be quite significant on the council. So, but again, coming back to the nature that we're looking at is the emerging risks. I think that some very key and important risks have been identified there. including the rating, the Māori zero rating one as well. So, any comments from my elected members? Councillor Stratford, you put your hand up. And then Councillor Smith, after you. Thanks.
My comment was going to be around that rating of the ancestral Whenua Māori land, because in my experience we haven't been collecting, $3 million a year on Māori freehold land, and so going forward after that legislation change we won't be rating for it. So all that's going to do is lower our lending capacity. It's not going to change it's not really going to change the income. It's not changing the seats around the on the deck to me. And I really get every time I see that line, like we discussed in the workshop, I'm offended when I see it, and when I saw it in this report, I'm really offended when I see that. And I just needed to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's my note. How much are we actually collecting, and therefore what is the risk?
And we do collect 2.6 million and rising a year in rates from.
Thank you. So, Mike, you'll be after Rachel. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few points. Firstly, I wanted to thank Tanya for the addition of the report agenda column and indicating when we can expect to see each of those reports. That's really, really helpful, so thank you. Firstly, I wanted to touch on what Bruce has already raised about that sustainable procurement and recognising that FNDC, I'm going to assume from the report, didn't put a submission into that process and didn't consider it. I just wanted to raise my disappointment in that, submissions to these sorts of processes sit with the strategy committee and with myself as chair, but also, as Bruce has raised, the game-changing work that we are doing in this space, it would be a real shame to see that not celebrated and submitted and ultimately considered as part of that process, because it is a significant risk, as Bruce has raised, to all of the work that has been undertaken if we then have to limit and cap that at $100,000. So I just wanted to raise that and would be quite keen to perhaps discuss that online as to how we can take learnings from that to ensure that we are participating in these submission processes when they are of high significance to our organisation. My next point was around the affordability report. While it's a fantastic report, I think most of us would agree that it was also highly unsettling to see some of those figures. So in the interest of one of my personal goals being about actionable points and reports going forward, my question is, how can we connect this report with some doing? How can we look at this from a strategy point of view to ensure that we are taking steps to try and lower some of those, to see affordability, or the affordability of our rates sitting at around 14% for some of our households? That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable now, and I would imagine that it will continue to not be sustainable. So I'm really keen to look at how we can mitigate some of those and what role we have to play. My final point was just pointing out page 89. It was great to see that a drought communication plan is being considered as treatment of our drinking water resilience. It's fantastic to see that acknowledged. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor, or Chair,
I'll just start with the race affordability thing as well. So I guess the first question is, before I make my statement, is what's the next step of the risk assessment, risk mitigation, risk treatment for the rates affordability? Okay? And if you look, even if it's only a sentence, what is the next step?
Yeah.
Because I do have some comments about it, but I'd like the answer to what the next step is before I make those comments.
I'm happy to go first. We've done, as we've seen, the workshops led by Cheryl and Janice around affordability. There's been significant discussion in this area. Members have been, in my personal view, been torn in two ways, very understandably. On the one hand, to have a weather eye on affordability, but on the other hand, being equally aware of the demands for service improvements. We've talked about some longer term issues, and I'm looking at the chair here. John has engaged me in some conversations around what might happen over the horizon. Bring the house down, and it's the health and safety manager that's just toppled over. The chair has been having a look at what might be around the corner from a national perspective around Three Waters, and that might in the future offer a different, I can use that word, prism around affordability. That's one thing. You've heard me bang a drum about my own personal view, and that is about building around communities. It's about building around localism. It's about further delegations. My experience is that that's one way to deal with that juxtaposition between the desire of members to want to do more, yet at the same time keeping the cost down.
Can I rephrase that, because I think thank you for the answer. It was probably in more depth in those areas than they needed to be.
Sorry.
But what further? Okay, so what further analysis is to be done? Just is there any further analysis to be done on this, or is this that we're going to treat based on this?
Through you, Chair. No, I think there is further analysis that is required.
Okay, because the point, I guess, the questions I have is we've got a number of different household types, and the household type other is more than 50% of the total households. Okay, so we although we've seen some households have 2% of their income in rates and some others have 14, and we have more than 50% of the total households that we have no idea what the percentage is because it's not here. And then we don't know. While it is mentioned here, there's no further analysis to be able to split it up. But some areas will have higher unemployed, and some areas will have higher proportions. And it is mentioned briefly in here, but there's no mention as to the next step is to say how many people in an area or how many households in an area can't afford their rates, rather than just to say, look, the millionaires in Kaitoi, okay, can afford their rates just as much as the millionaires in Kaitaia or Kerikeri. And that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, that's a nonsense statement. Because there are probably more millionaires in Kaitaia than there are in Kaitoi. Okay, therefore, there are fewer people who can't afford their rates in Kaitaia. And that's I guess, obviously lacking in this report. We simply don't know those numbers. You know, how many people, how many households can't afford their rates in these areas, rather than just to say the fully employed people can and the unemployed people can't. That doesn't make sense.
Through the chair, Jan, could you offer any thoughts or comments? No, but all I can say is that we'll have a look and see if any further analysis can be carried out that would offer shed a bit more light on this for you.
Councillor Stratford.
I did like the part in the report that said there's an interesting tension where there will be the aspect of affordability, negatively impacted by increased rates, which will then be offset by the economic benefit of enhanced ability of Far North ratepayers to earn greater incomes. So there's going to be some tension initially, but then more employment, more houses, more ratepayer base able to afford to pay for it. We're in a state of transformation.
Absolutely. But those figures aren't there. They're stated, like you say, a negative concept, but the figures aren't there.
Councillor Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a bit intrigued when I read the statement that proposed government changes to local government procurement will mean that there's a greater chance that procurement will cost more, take longer, and mandatory processes will require more staff time to manage and deliver. And I thought I completely missed something in one of the briefing notes, because I didn't even know we were having a conversation around proposed changes to local government procurement. And then I got onto the Bill report on rates affordability, and it seems to me that there's a much bigger question here that we're missing. And I'm very mindful that there's only 4 councillors at this meeting today, and I don't want us to just to accept this and move on. I think we need to actually have a workshop as part of our LTP next year during deliberations to actually start to put all of this into context of the overall picture of where we're going as a district and what we can afford to do. I've sat here through the LTP workshops and I've listened to us thump the table about the unfunded mandate from the Crown. What they call it, shiny pants in Wellington, giving us more and more to do without a cheque to come with them. And we're expected to just pass that on to the ratepayer. When are we actually going to say, no, you're not going to just continue to accept your unfunded mandate from Wellington unless it comes with the requisite resources to enable that to happen? It's simply not acceptable just to receive a report and say, oh, well, it's all going to cost more. Tough tickies. Pay up. We need to go back and have a sensible conversation. Councillor Smith asked a question about what can we do about rates affordability. The opportunity is with us right now as we develop the next LTP, and we're going to have some really hard navel gazing at what that document can deliver and should deliver.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Court. Very good points. This here is some of the emerging risks that have been identified by staff. The work has yet to be done around it in the detail, and I think taking your point there, maybe it's worth looking at getting more councillors around the table and looking at the bigger picture and how we can do it. You mentioned some thoughts that you and I talked about, and then there's others as well. Rachel, your thoughts as well. So perhaps there is a workshop or something that we have to put aside a time aside to do that.
Through you, Chair, we'll certainly go ahead and organise that. One other thought did strike Sean and I, and that is that for members, if you identify risks which we haven't identified, please let us know and give us your feedback on that.
Yep. So any other comments on this? Yes, I do have a comment. Just a minor one. It's one that occurred last time when we had this one. Sean, noticed from the CE office there's no risks have been identified. At the time I said, surely not. Now, you've got 20 employees in there, so maybe I can give you one.
Possums!
Actually, can I just comment? When you're doing a job interview, one of the questions is always what is your greatest weakness? Greatest weakness. And you expect all the interviewees to at least play the game. Okay, so if they think they're a superhero, then they've got to say something like, I think my greatest weakness is I work too hard and I love it too much, and it affects me in that I can't give any more than 2 hours a week to the animal shelter, or more than 1 week a year to the refugees in Somalia, right? So at least you play the game, but you never turn around and say I don't have any weaknesses.
But anyway, we'll come back on track here. So get back to the risks. I'm sure that there's risks in there that we can do. I'm not saying that the CE's not doing a good job.
No, you posed a really good question, and I'll have to think about it, but I'm really aware that, I think when we started out, I'll be able to confirm here, but I think on the mass list that you don't see, there's about 160 risks, the organisation, and us feeding into the bottom of that list wouldn't really reduce them up. We've really focused on the top dozen that get dealt with here, and there aren't actually any comms in personnel unless you want to point one out to me. Except, as a CEO's office, everyone's going to put one on.
What happened if you got hit by this?
You're online.
I would put on, I would put on that the existence of local government is something we need to start thinking about with the massive reforms in RMA, building consents, waters reform, and it's in the paper that KDC's one local government that it will exist after waters are amalgamated, and we haven't started to really analyse what that could mean for the size, structure and existence of our own council on one tool.
There you go. I'm just trying to challenge every head of the department to think about the risks, because they are the in one form or another. Thank you, Sean.
Chairman, we should inform Mr Robertson why we mentioned possums.
Oh, well,
I've heard something out there about possums, so that's pretty reached my ears.
Yeah, blade of this government, Sean's office.
Can I give you a brief epilogue?
Oh, very quickly.
It was captured by one of the animal management officers who put it in his truck to take it to a farm and escaped from the box, and it's taken him 2 days to get it out from under the dashboard where it's been living.
Shouldn't have a secret spy camera or something would have got the opposite Sean or something like that. It could be that.
He could be wearing a cane. So let's get back on track. So we've got to move in a second. We're going to move it now. Put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So item 6.2.
Sorry, sorry, John, can I just ask a question, please? I'm sorry that I don't want to reopen the discussion.
Yes.
This page is really important because we've got in-depth information here on 4 or 5 really key risks.
Yes.
And one of them is really, and it's already been raised, is directly relevant to the setting of the financial strategy, the setting of your RFP, and the decision you've got to make around the LTP. Now, this doesn't solve it. This just says this is confirming the nature of the risk that we resolve. So my question is, how much will council see of this paper? Because actually it's critical for the whole of the council as you do your workshopping and thinking around the LTP going forward. I think that's a pretty good question.
I think that's Bruce. I think that's a good point. So
That's what Anne raised.
No, sorry. Sorry. But that's exactly, sorry. I am wanting to reinforce your point because we have just accepted this.
I think
I'm saying, so what?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer you. For Ian, I said it was a very good point. For you, I'm saying it's a good point. Keep council and court happily. But from what I understand, the comment I made, which was pretty short and general, is that the further work is needed to identify the risk. But I'd say that we need to take it to all of council as we evaluate the impacts in our decision making. So I would hope it's not being lost. I wasn't trying to
I think my point is all of council will see the entirety of this minute.
Yeah.
Because actually they need to see the detail behind it.
Yeah, I agree.
Through you, Chair, we'll circulate that. What it does do, it gives Cheryl and Janice the opportunity to create the context for the discussion and difficult debate between those 2 things we mentioned, keeping rates low but improving services.
Yeah, agree. In fact, to formalise it, maybe the committee here should be looking at the emerging risks that have a significant impact, and Sean's raised one as well, that we escalate it through to all of council.
Question.
We've got a process.
Perhaps we could get Burl to Teams in for a LTP workshop like what Bruce and have, talked about. They presented to us last year and it was awesome.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's not being lost. I think in the discussion we've had, barring possums, we are taking it seriously and we'll take it forward. All right, so item 6.2, I'll move that the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee receive the report lessons learned from our 2 crises. In fact, there was a drought, there was a flood as well, and the pandemic, so there were 3. So do I have a seconder? Councillor Stratford. And discussions, please.
And just to point out, Chair, that Tanya's been extremely busy this last quarter. She's been moving in many circles and has been taking the lead, and Sean's seconded her in to carry out some work in this space, and she's done a great job.
Well, maybe we can ask Tanya, can you give a bit of a summary of this report of the key things that were learned and whether they've been implemented or not? It sounds like quite a bit of work's been done here in the community previously.
Thank you, through the Chair. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the huge efforts put in by many of my colleagues through the time of the twin crises, and what came out when we started talking to the groups of people who put in huge efforts was their dedication to the work that they did and their desire to improve next time. So I think there are a number of things we did really well. But coming out of this, there's some clear improvements that we can make, but they're not going to be a surprise to anyone. We learned a lot about roles and responsibilities, and moving forward we can capture that and support staff to understand what they're going to be doing. Using myself as an example, I stepped into 2 roles through the crises, which I had no idea what I needed to be doing. And so learnt as I went, and a lot of staff were like that and very committed to making it work. But we can help them with some clearer guidance around roles and responsibilities, and that will be captured in the business continuity program that we're refreshing now. I think that was probably the biggest learning out of that. The staff all worked together really well. We didn't have any difficulties with that. People put in huge hours to get everything to work. It's just that we could perhaps help the structure around everybody and make that clearer. I think so many people here were involved in it. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment.
Well, I'll go to members. Any questions?
Just a comment that I agree with Tanya that there were the response. You know, we went through the drought and it was exhausting from an elected member point of view, and then we were hit with the pandemic and it was even more exhausting because we had the drought happening at the same time, and fears from the community that, you know, there's this pandemic, they're going to be affected by it and have no water, but our staff, you know, were still responding, and we were I felt really encouraged that you know, we were still running when it came to water supply, you know, so getting the emergency supplies out to our communities was still happening. That was great. And your involvement, the staff involvement out in the community in a voluntary capacity as well was really amazing. And I know I have been one of the biggest critics about the business and, you know, the BAU. Continuing our efforts outside of the crisis is probably what it was identified in the previous report. The BAU is probably the only thing that I don't know whether that's been captured in this, but the response to the drought and the pandemic simultaneously was amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments?
Just from a leadership and management point of view, in a previous career of mine, whenever we did an operation, we always had this sort of session because it's quite embarrassing if you make the same mistake twice. Now, in the crisis conditions, you always make mistakes. That's the nature of crisis. So what Tanya led here is really cool. There's a lessons learned process, and I don't know that we've done a whole lot of these. But just to make this practical, can you imagine in a year's time if we have some sort of repeat crisis that's in some way related to this? That's when this gets pulled out. It goes to the first crisis management team meeting. It's part of the essential first read. And what a head start it is, considering what we did with crisis management, both crisis response teams this last time around. What a huge head start to put this document there as the creation of mental set in the new group around the new threat. So I count this as a really cool piece of work. It's going. I've no use for it right now, but it's got real potential in the future crisis.
Yep.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. In fact, I asked for this to come to the committee. I knew the work would be done. I think I'm talking to you, Will, and asked that it come to the committee so that the elected members around the table can see that was done, because it was such a, you know, in terms of which it was an emergency, but it was a great opportunity to have such a crisis to be able to test our systems, and to lose the learnings of that would be shameful. So to actually capture that means that we've got greater resilience being built into our system. So yes, I think it's good. Bruce?
So just on that, so I'm heartened by that, because obviously the critical question is what, when and how do we capture the improvement? So absolutely take the point, Sean, that this is good for the next time we put it out. But there is a modest improvement program in terms of answering all the how and whys and how coulds and what have you. All those very good questions, like the way you did it. But for instance, it struck me that if I was to, did my notes, highlight what I read, it was a level of better communication, better role definition. You can deal with those things now, at least structurally. Are we doing that?
Yes, so on my work program is refreshing our business continuity program, and so this will feed into that. There was another lessons learned completed, which was the water management committee, and a lot of the actions out of that, which kind of connects in with this as well, they're already in place.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good. Right. I'll put it to the vote.
Can I say something, Tom?
Yeah, sorry. I didn't see your hand go up. Councillor Radich. Yeah, comment.
Just in regard to the drought, the weather people are telling us it's not going to happen in the farm. We're going to get more rain than expected, particularly this month and early in January. What's worrying me at this very moment is the delay of the hookup of the Sweetwater Aquifer to Kaitaia and the cost at this very moment. I've been asking for the cost, and somehow it doesn't seem to be coming through. And I know for a fact, at this very moment, with the consultants involved, it's huge. I've got this feeling now that I don't think this is going to eventuate. I've seen the latest email I've got. We've just put in a second bore, which will cost many, many thousands of dollars. And
Councillor Radich, I just remind you, this is a public meeting. So some of those things that sharing.
Well, it's.
Yeah.
No, it isn't, John. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. This is well known throughout the public.
No, some of those things have to be done, Councillor Radich, so there's contracts and so on. So I'd rather you just talk to Sean directly or PX on that.
Yeah, well, it does involve the contracts, John. You know that, and I know that. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to put this, just getting back to the agenda item here. I'll just put that to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So I'll just move to now item 6.3, and that's the internal audit insurance. That was done December 20. I will move in a second for that. Bruce, Councillor Stratford. Any questions, elected members? Any concerns? Any comments?
No, I feel like we're in good hands with Celine at the helm of the internal audit and insurance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'm real pleased to see them all listed there. I have one question, and that is 2018 audit NZ final annual management report. It noted deposits that were being received, some listed 18 years ago. That's all been worked through, I take it, and been tidied up? Please, if you can.
On hold.
Because it's on hold. It's recorded as on hold. I just want to get a bit of a handle on it.
Through the chair, thank you. I do want to just premise that this report is light at the moment, but that's because there's about to be a whole lot of new things put on. Audit New Zealand, building consent, IT security audit, NZTA, council mark. So it's not going to be as light as a feather from now on.
Right.
Thank you for your question. In regards to the particular one that you are asking at the moment, I do have concerns over it. I have been chasing it up. It's one of our oldest ones, and I did warn the individual who's looking after it that if I'm asked, I will have to just speak my truth. It's my job. That person is not getting back to me, and since I started, has not done so. And so, you know, it's there. It's not going away. I'm not going away. It's also part of the reason why I'm changing the report format, because there's no measure in here over, is the true intent of the audit still upheld? Is it actively being looked at? Is there consultation around the best way to proceed with it? And is the real work being done that's making a difference? So that's why in the new report format that will be coming through, you'll have a lot more visibility.
Clarity. Okay, thanks, Celine. Yep, and through Will, you can keep me informed on that one. So any other comments from the members?
If I could throw in one flippant comment, Chair, apologies for changing from the normal colour to chalky white. I had a dog bark in the council chamber. Very good.
Apologies to the viewers. Not sure where that dog came from.
Sorry, I've got a question about that. So we just have a name and shame policy, or is there some more to be done on?
Through you, Chair, I'll follow this up with Celine and ensure that action is taken.
Thank you. So I'll put this to the vote. Other comments? Anybody got the hand up? No. All right. All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Celine. So item 6.4, Richard. 110. Move and second, please. So the next item is item 6.5, revenue recovery report. Is that what we got? 6.4. So that's next. So have I moved a second for that? I've got to tick that off as well. Move, Bruce?
Yep.
Second it? I'll second it. Do we have questions that we're going to speak to that at all?
This is just a standard.
Standard one of those. Any questions?
Councillor Smith, Chair.
Councillor Smith. My device.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think it's partially my fault. I'm chopping and changing as to my indication of when I would like to speak, so apologies for that. Firstly, as a new member to this committee, it was really great to see this report. Some of the questions that I've been asking around the level of service as we go through the LTP process were answered in this report, so really fantastic to see. I do have a lot of questions, but I will just keep it to a couple. The first question I had was around noise control, and apologies, I haven't made note of the page number for my notes. I note that this seems to be a historical performance issue ongoing. It does state that there are regular meetings being held with the contractor. However, I think it's really important as a governance body that we stand up and say that we won't accept poor performance and that further steps need to be taken, especially when in part of the report it acknowledges that there are significant social issues occurring on our reserves and things that aren't being dealt with simply because noise control is unable to respond. So I'd be really keen to look at how we can take next steps in that, whether there is a performance process that can be reported back to this committee or to the appropriate committee, looking at learnings and how we can affect that. I think 3 years of poor performance is not something we should be accepting. The other one that I wanted to raise, the other two, sorry, was around halls. There is a note that none of our halls have been recertified this year with their building warrant of fitnesses. And I was just wanting some commentary around why none of the disability access requirements hadn't been addressed as of yet. And then the final question that I have is around percentage of abandoned calls. On page 126, it says that this is related to flooding. However, historically, the KPI hasn't been met. So I'd just be interested in the interest of moving forward and taking action, what needs to be done from a governance level to address this, to make sure that we're increasing that level of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Andy, do you want to respond?
In terms of, do that we are looking at, it is part of the tendering package, so that whole contract is currently aligned with our security contract, and we are looking at doing a Section 17A review around content scope and then retesting it in market, and we may well split out, the decision hasn't been made, split out the two contracts from security and noise control so we have a standalone contract.
Right. Do you want to comment?
If I may add, Mr. Chair, the noise contract specifically, the way the contract was let and the pricing attached to the services across the district at large, whether a contractor performs as well or we did it ourselves, will be challenged with getting to different locations within certain timeframes. That's not to say we shouldn't be having the performance discussions that we are. We're just trying to dissect and get the information from the contractor and look at instances where there's been a failure versus those successes where they are able to. And it does require a bit of further analysis and joint problem solving around that. In addition, there's the contract management aspect that Andy mentioned. So splitting the contract out, if we continue to have a contract, is one area of focus, and the other one is the actual performance within the contract itself. So it is receiving attention, and we're happy to provide more information when that further analysis has been done.
Could I pick up the point if I might, Chair, to chip in, and that's on customer service and call handling, Councillor Smith. But my own view is, having a lot of experience in this area, that the manager that we have working there is one of the best I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I think his staff are well trained and hard working. We don't always have enough staff to deal with peak times. That's the challenge. And second, to use a lovely phrase that I like to borrow from the Chief Executive, that the software that we have is suboptimal. We don't have a fully integrated customer relationship management package in there, and I think if we had a fully operational CRM system, that too would make a difference. Performance has been improving, but it's not to where it needs to go yet. I think the target figure that's been set for the abandoned call rate of 6% is exactly right. If it's any less than that, to be honest, you've got too many staff in there. But if it's much more than that, then our customers are hacked off before we even begin because they can't get through first time. So we need to make further improvements in that area. But I say again, the quality of the effort and the staff in there is excellent.
Okay. Are you happy with that answer, Councillor Smith, or answers?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other councillor support?
Please just follow up on the VWAS. I hadn't actually picked it up when I read the agenda, but I'm mindful with my other hat on, I do the district licensing, and I had to issue a special licence the other day for a big boxing event to be held next door in the Kaiko Memorial Hall. And the fire brigade opposed the application on the grounds that the building didn't have a current VWAS for fire exit, and there were anticipated to be a crowd in excess of 200 persons. And then I was reflecting on Bruce's comments earlier with the Whakaari White Island ruling coming down, that the fact that 7 VWAS expire in the same month shouldn't be a get out of jail free card for non-compliance. Perhaps we need to be looking at staggering the VWAS over the year, because ultimately the buck is going to land at the Chief Executive's feet. If, God forbid, there was a fire and people could not get out of a council-owned facility in time, and we had not issued the appropriate fire evacuation scheme or lodged it with them, that we've got no defendable case. So perhaps we need to be looking at these things from a, what is the risk if I don't get on top of this, rather than accepting a suboptimal result.
Yep.
What is that, Sarah? Some trouble finding it in the
Page 123, bottom
120.
3. Last item on the page.
My get out of jail free card is I'll grant the licence, but you won't have a VWAP.
That's right. We had a big meeting there recently.
Yeah, there was quite a few people there.
That's right. I thought it was all compliant. Anyway, that's something you can follow up. Thanks, Councillor Court. Any other questions? No? All right, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Yes? Carried. We go now to our next item.
5, I think it's Chair.
Item 6.5.
133.
And do I move and second? Bruce and I'll second it then. Revenue recovery report. Pretty standard. Questions?
Janice, I want to see if you was on it, Chair.
I'll let you say a few words, Janice. It's pretty standard, I know. Any questions from elected members?
No, I don't have a comment. I just like that there's been some follow-up in this report and the one before on the item that the Mayor raised, the fact that we've got outstanding resource consent arrears, and there is still work happening on that, which is great. Yeah.
Good. All right, everybody's happy, so I'll put that to the vote then. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So we've done 6.6, 6.7, Council Financial Report. I'll move it. Do I have a second?
Yep.
Happy to second.
We'll let Rachel.
I'll let you do it. Janice, do you want to give us the highlights, please?
I don't know if there's more I can add than what's already in the report. Things are tracking well at this point of the year. We're only just outside the first quarter. Capital expenditures occurring. We're not noticing any big deviations at this point.
Councillor Stratford?
I think I bring this up every meeting. I really want a dashboard, Damon, that, you know, because we do have unbudgeted expense items at meetings, and if we had a tally of that so that, you know, we have the strategic view going forward of how much over the year we're getting as just a quick snapshot. I don't know where you would put that, Damon, but we get listed. Yeah, there's a big list, but you have to go. I have to go looking for it each time we have an unbudgeted item come to, you know, like the infrastructure meeting prior to this. I have to go back to the last one to have a look at where we are, and then kind of do this calculation in my head to give myself a gauge of how far out of budget we're sitting for the end of the financial year. But yeah, that's my business mind thinking ahead. And our decision-making reports don't reflect that. They don't, you know, give us a tally each time of how much we've unbudgeted already. You know, so on a big ticket item that we're agreeing to. Yeah, so I was just taking the opportunity to signal that because there's a list of unbudgeted items in there.
Thank you. Any other comments from elected members? Bruce, anybody?
I'm happy to comment if Sean wants to come in first. Do you want to comment first, Sean?
No, I was just going to, just for transparency, I was just going to fish it Mr. Watson there through one chair, because, you know, if you overspend in your household, you rearrange your unders and overs to balance your books by the end of the year, and we do a very similar thing. So at the governance level, I'm not saying no to this, I'm just wondering at the governance level what value would be added by that work if we were to do it, in terms of how we accommodate the unexpected spends, which we get you to approve, and then we go away and make our savings or adjust our programs or whatever we need to do to try and make it fit within the year. So we have an outturn which reflects the balanced budget we began the year with. It's sort of operational, it's tense for us, but it's an operational matter. Do you really want that out on the table, and what would...
We have had cases recently where unbudgeted expense had to come back to the table to go into the annual plan. So it's trying to prevent that from happening. Water, for example. The resilience projects were going to be covered within the previous financial year, I think.
We have to discuss this more with you, right, until I understand what you want.
And through your chair, from a technical perspective, there's no problem with the dashboard, save for the human resources in IT. There is a very, very long queue, I have to tell you, for BA and BI type work. On the back of BCA, Dr. Dean, there's a long queue, isn't there, in terms of getting these works done, but it can be delivered. If I might just add to Jan's comments here, from a soccer terminology, and I look at Bruce as well. If this, would you have taken this result at the beginning of the year? So far, and I know I would.
Yeah, I was close. Councillor Vesich and I would. We
were on the money, actually.
I think this is pretty pleasing in terms of how things. I mean, Janice quite rightly at the start of the year she did various borrowings and financial moves to keep us covered in a worst case scenario. And it's only recently that the chief executive signed off on putting us back to a sort of BAU type footing, and that's because of the performance that we've had, and it's a credit. And without sort of taking up too much time, Chair, but when I look at the UK at the moment, and I see councils like the London Borough of Croydon going officially bankrupt, and many other councils teetering on the edge, you think, well, it's great being over here.
Yes, but there's many events outside of our control that made it a bit easier for us. So, any other questions, selected members, on this matter? All right, I'll put it to the vote then. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So that brings us to item 6.8, one I've been looking forward to, and Damon's going to come up to do a bit of a presentation first, and that is the Local Government Information Manager's IT satisfaction report. But do we have a move and a seconder? I'll move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stratford.
Good morning. Afternoon. Hey, firstly, it's really good to see you all in the flesh. I haven't been in this room with you guys for a while, so it's good to not be on a screen and see everybody. So hopefully Kim's going to have a PowerPoint for me in a second. So just to give you some background, so this is a satisfaction survey that is done through LGIM. LGIM is our National Association for Local Government Information Managers, another local government acronym for us to remember. And so we've done this as a way to ensure that we are benchmarking ourselves around the rest of the sector in terms of what we do, how well we do it, are we doing the right things, what are the priorities, and the likes. There we go, perfect. And so the measures are 4 dimensions. One is, our general satisfaction with how we do with our people, the value that IT gives to the organisation, the relationship the organisation has with IT, and also what are the capacities and the constraints, which is always and we're just talking about BI being, where is that priority and what is that stress point? And it's nice to have a bit of healthy tension there, but we sort of managed that. So it's done for across the organisation, so all tiers across the organisation, 205 people, so we had just under, it was like 49 point something %. I was aiming for 60, but we'll go with 50. When I was writing this PowerPoint, and I said to Will, remember on the 9th of September when I gave you a sample picture of these reports, and Councillor Tipene goes, oh my God, we're in crazy land, we're in like 56% or something, that's their score. You'll be glad to know if the clicker works.
This is poetic, we're talking about.
It is, yeah. I'll do the nod to Kim and she can click it for me. We had the sample there, we had like 54, 56%, and Councillor Tipene goes, oh my God, we've got some world of pain, we're in trouble. To which we then realised actually it wasn't, that was a sample, not the actual schools we hadn't actually done the survey yet. So,
Just carry on without the slides.
Okay. Oh, wow. So the slide we had in terms of our score, so we came out at 78% was our satisfaction score, which is quite a bit higher than the 54, and our value was 76, which I thought was actually quite good, considering the last 12 months and what we've actually been through, which I think is kind of, I think Sean talked about that there's been 5 major things in the last 12 months that we've been dealing with. So for us to feel like we've got in a really good place, I think that actually is a really good score. There is a but to that, I guess. There's some good things that are happening, and there's also some things that we do need to improve upon going forward. But the good thing with this survey is that it is benchmarked against international government through this survey, as well as New Zealand local government. So at the time we did our report, 17 councils had participated, and now there's been about 20, so that's moving target all the time. We were 6% higher for local government in New Zealand against the average, 4% higher than the international government one, 5% for value, and 3% for local government. So basically up on all the metrics against the 2 surveys. The survey covers off 13 different criteria that they measure against. The top 3 we had was, ironically, innovation and leadership, IT policies and IT security being the highest performing or satisfaction scores, and the lowest being analytical capacity and reporting, client-facing technologies or solutions, and data quality. And I think Celine at the last audit committee talked about, and even you through the chair talked about, data quality of our assets. Where does that sit? Which is obviously an area we obviously need to make some work on going forward. But overall, we scored pretty well on a good score. The big areas in terms of the different areas, we had by the different groups, IMs and district services had a lower score, and Dean and Andy and I sort of had a chat when we talked to SLT about the score, going, what's happened in those 2 areas? And I think the 2 being, it's been a pretty busy year for IMs and BCA within district services, and the innovation work with Vision 2020 for our resource consents probably dictates as to why those are probably a bit lower. But the other 3 groups, the CE office, the corporate services and strat policy and planning, scored pretty well. There we go. So that was the sample one, just to finish the joke, and Councillor Tipene is not here to make that joke, but that's all right. So we did score quite a bit more. So if we go to the next, to click again. So yes, we had 3 areas, and obviously some of the stuff that we've been doing with our new workplace, creating workplaces. I think a lot of the surveys come back around what's really important. One is network connectivity. Some of the commentary was, can you fix the internet in far north? Which I like to say I have a wee bit of power, but probably not that much power to be able to do that. But I think certainly the work that Anna Mules has done with the digital strategy around how we get those connectivity really makes that linkage quite loud and clear for us going forward and to service our communities. The service desk is also another area of concern or improvement, I should say. And again, I think given that we used to work in 9 offices, very structured world, now we're in 400, that model has to change in terms of how we reflect and how we support our people in that world going forward. And with our business applications, I think certainly we used to be in an office and we had paper. You're never going to get rid of paper completely, but you can have less paper and less reliant on paper moving forward. So that's another area that I think we've certainly got planned as part of our next year's capital program and also our work program as our BAU going forward of improvements.
Great.
Are we going? Oh, we're still going. Yes, so finish off. I'll go a bit. So also in terms of where you sit in the organisation, one of the lowest scores was on our team members. And again, I'm going to put back to the working remotely. It's changed our dynamics. It's a different. We're in a bit of a test and learn process, as Jamie was talking about this morning. So that's probably understandable as to where do I sit, how do I work, what does it look like, and going through that change process as well. In terms of where we sat against the benchmark, so at the time we had 17 other councils had done the score. Out of those 17, we ranked third, so our 78% score put us at the top of that level, which is called Trusted Operator. There's a business partner there's 2 councils in New Zealand that have done that, but they've only just got into the 80s, so we're about 3 or 4% away from those councils. Any higher and you sort of get into the whole we're a bank and we've got billions of dollars to spend on lovely solutions that give us to that level. But it does give us to the point around what do we actually want to try and focus on, and that certainly covers off rather than the firefighting activities, but around how do we do more business intelligence, how do we do more application delivery, how do we support the remote working. So there's certainly an area that we're in that good space to progress. So one of the big things, I guess, too, just to cover off is our training level. So there's 4 relationships. One around IT understands the needs of the business, which was 79%. We execute our requests at 78. We communicate effectively 76, but we train as only at 62. And so Jill and I have had a couple of conversations around how do we try and package that up around what does that look like going forward, because that's obviously a big issue around how will you support our people obviously working from home, and the amount of digital change that we have introduced in the last 12 months has been relatively high. So there's a lot of work in that space to do, and again, it's more just around knowing that we've got that benchmark to start with to say where do we go from here moving forward. So if you could just click a few slides to number 12, Kim. Yeah. So this one here is basically the 13 core services, and obviously the 3 that are highlighted there in the red: service desk, internet comms, and business apps were the most important that people scored as part of the survey. So that obviously gives us a good benchmark of what's the focus we want to get to. And the bottom 3 there being, which you can't quite see, but it reads data quality, client-facing technology, and analytics reporting, which is really an area that we want to try and start exposing with the various upgrades we are doing with regards to Pathway, Tech One, and Objective in that world. So next slide, Kim. So this one here is a good one, and I always, having done these sort of things before in the past, The bottom two numbers there, IT budget as a percentage of revenue. So we scored 3.2, average for local government is 3.6, average for international is 3.9, so we're actually lower. The percentage of staff as a percentage of users, of total staff. So we range 6.7 and the average is 5.5 and 4.6. The caveat to that is that every council define IT differently. So I am very much an inclusive. We have some teams that we would include in IT as part of the survey. It would be different to many other councils. So I wouldn't quite take this an area of real concern to worry about. And we'll just go to the slide 16, Kim. So the last one here is just around some of the, and just to note, Councillor Smith's actionable points following a discussion. Have more, Kim?
It's not near the station. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So we've got about 6 items that we want to try and improve. This ranges of having a target for the next survey, which we'll do next year, to try and get that bar from 78 to say in early 80s, so like 82, 83%, and also try and engage a bit more with the business around what are their priorities, because I think as part of the remote working and our future pressures, we need to try and make sure that we're in step with what the business is doing and not being reactionary to that process as well. So yeah, overall, really good result, and really happy that we're on got a good footing, good benchmark, and it's a good place to be for us moving forward. So happy to take any questions if anybody has got any. Yeah.
John.
Thanks, Damon. I've been looking forward to this. And I'm actually very pleased with the way you're looking. Well done for the details that are there. I do have a few questions, but I'm sure my fellow elected members will, and we'll start with, I think Councillor Mike first and then Councillor Stratford. And I'm sure my issues have been raised as well. So
right. Just to clarify, Darren, so you look after all of the IT in the business? So you're, I guess HR, payroll, accounts around Darwin, all that's you?
So Darwin is a project that is run within the IAMS group, but we have a component that supports that activity at the right tier from a technology point of view.
That's I guess from a technology point of view. Okay.
Yes.
So the shadow IT question here, the numbers here are the number of people who have purchased shadow IT, or the amount of IT that you purchase is 25. It says 25%. Is that just 25% of shadow IT going on, or 25% of people have at one stage or another?
My interpretation of that, and it is one that I think people probably get confused of, what is shadow IT to start with, full stop. The other thing is around, it's not something that's delivered by us, so we have a number of cloud applications that are not provided by IT, but the business uses. So I'm suspecting most of those things are those sorts of services that we have, and we have a number of them.
Okay.
So that's why I think people go, it's not delivered by IT, but I use it because it's in the business.
Oh, okay. No, it just says due to that internal IT capacity, so I thought there might have been something.
That's how the survey defines it.
Okay.
But I don't think we have, 25% or 30%.
No, I was just going to say, what kind of risk is that? Do you see any of that as a risk?
No. Because I think the reason why I can say this is because through the financials, we have some very good processes around where that money gets signed off and how that gets approved. So we know what we're buying,
Great.
One. And two, that there is a wider context around how we actually integrate all these different things anyway.
Okay, so there's nothing going on that you don't have oversight?
No.
Great.
No.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Councillor Stratford.
Kia ora, Damon. The proposed increase in budget for IT for the 2021 LTP, can you connect that somehow to the, at present we spend 3.2% of our budget on IT, and we are below the local government average. Can you interrelate these? What's that percentage going to sit at if we go with the upgrade?
So that number there will relate.
Or wait for Will.
Sorry. If I could just jump in first. It's a great question. Happy for David to answer it now. But that won't substitute for what we promised you, because what you'd asked for at the last meeting was, could we have some sort of workshop session to better explain and unpack the amount of money we want to roll out and spend. So I promise you that's still going to come.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to answer that, and simply, we have a operational spend, which I think this is based on. So this does not include capital.
Okay.
So this is the people on the ground, the stuff we buy annually, that sort of normal operational stuff. The capital, which is different, is not part of that 3.2, and that's the stuff that we want to go through on the 16th.
Awesome.
Just to sort of go through what that looks like and why we're doing it, so that you've got an awareness of where it fits with everything else. Yeah.
Do we know what the? Sorry, I'm totally off topic, but if we can try and get the numbers of what local government spend on capital and IT, that would be helpful for that workshop too.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, the aim is to try and give you the story of what's happening for us and how it relates to other councils and what they're doing. Yeah.
So the depreciation is not included in the operational expense, or it is?
Depreciation is included in our operational budget.
Yeah, that's all.
Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the bigger things too. Like, I think how long we sweat the asset, and
that's cool. Okay, so in a way, capital items are included through depreciation.
Once we produce it, yes. Pretty sure.
I don't recall the 29 elected members being surveyed and satisfaction.
No, we didn't. It was more aimed as an internal, not to say you're internal, but front, people that are in the room. We could do one for you guys, and I think actually saying that out loud, that might be something we want to do on an annual basis. It's a bit of a check-in of going, how are you going with your new world? And we can certainly do something like that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Smith, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Damon, thank you for this report, and also thank you for highlighting my desire for next steps. So on that note, I note in the executive summary of the report, there are some key recommendations, which is really great to see. I really appreciate that being included in the report. My question is there anything you need from governance to enable those key recommendations, or will they just continue?
I think certainly once we've had those workshops and we can sort of tell the story as to what we're trying to do, what we're doing now, what we want to do, I think that'll be for your information to have that awareness. And rather than seeing IT as a cost, I think I really want to paint the picture that IT is a value add to the business, and that without it, other things will stop, to put it bluntly. So I think we want to just try and give you that picture of, we do quite prudent with how we spend and what we do it for, and there's a reason of, very much like building a road. You've got to plan for it, then you've got to build it, you've got to maintain it. So same sort of.
Got to have a business case.
Any other?
I just make the observation that the most expensive line in our LTP, bar none, is IT. We spend less on the surge scheme and we spend less on roads. So for me, it's really, really important to get the justification, especially when, in light of our earlier conversation about rates affordability.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that certainly, and as I said on the call, and I want to paraphrase what I said. I think a lot of the stuff that we've got in that has been previously purchased stuff that now has a depreciation cycle, and we buy bigger systems. I mean, Will talked about the CRM, so we do have one that sort of does sort of the job, but not quite. And so it's matching if you deliver something, what does it give you in terms of the value? And it's just not just for the sake of buying or renewing it. We are going through that process, going, actually, what do we need, and is it still fit for purpose? One of the things we have in our strategic plan is around, is it the right tool for the right job now? We may have had it 5, 6 years, 7 years ago. Technology is, a quantum. It moves so fast. So now we want to really start looking and go, why do we want to do this? So while it's a line item now in the budget, it may not actually be a spend that we do to, and that's what we want to try and talk to you about on the workshop.
Thanks, David. Any other questions? Just clarity from my point of view, Shadow IT, like Mike, when I saw that, I thought risk. So just clarity, because I was pre-engaged in something else, but you're saying that you're well aware of all of the Shadow IT?
Yes, yeah. Well, one of the first things I did when I started March last year, which seems like a long time ago, but not really, and with the finance guys, just to understand like what do we spend on software or services that relate to that, and trying to really put a good ring around what that is, buying, what we cover, and not to have it decentralised. So we typically buy it and on charge, or we at least know where those costs are done.
When I say aware more than just that it's actually there, but aware that of the potential cyber risks and everything else associated with it, they're covering all of that.
Correct, yeah. I mean, the next topic, which sort of covers those cloud services and those things we need to do, which is one part of protecting it, but yeah, well aware of what services we procure and how we use those now.
It's just software not purchased by IT.
Correct, correct, yes.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I'll put it to the vote then. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. That brings us to the end of public, and I'm going to now go into public exclusion. But what I want to do first, I think I've got to move to allow.
There's a resolution once we move into PX to allow time to stay.
All right. So I'll move into PX. So I'll move time out. We'll take a quick break. We'll do the move to PX first. So I'll move into PX, and then I've good signals that we need to take a break as well. Do I have a second before that? Yeah. Councillor Stratford, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. bring that up. Let me know when you have done that. Just thank everybody. It's been a long day. And there's some good meaty stuff there. And I think we've identified some areas to go forward for workshops and some very good suggestions. We're probably going to go live for a bit. Are we live yet? Sorry.
Yeah, don't get caught out like I have.
So all I'll be doing is
Closing karakia.
You're live. So I just want to thank everybody for coming and look forward to the after committees in the new year. And have a good Christmas, safe one, safe break. And thanks, Bruce, for being here. And have a good flight back. So now I'll close the meeting and I'm going to ask Councillor...
Make a comment?
Oh, comment, yes.
It's just about this meeting, really. Considering this body didn't exist 3.5 years ago, this is I'm with OCD. I measure everything, including my own personal life, and I get really excited about this meeting. When it's been gradual, so maybe you didn't notice, but the amount of data, metrics, measurables, dashboards, benchmarks, risk, detail, methodology that we have in our language and in our papers for this under Councillor John and Will and the work that they've done is actually, I don't know, Bruce, maybe it's just normal for some other councils, but if you think about where we've come from, it's a really exciting and evidence-based conversation and the highlight of our meeting agenda. I think as a council we've got a much better work to move.
You're missing a genome, mate, if you think this is exciting.
The councillor has a bit of a road fixation, which we have to allow for. But I just want to say congratulations to everybody, and particularly the elected members for leading us and approving us every step of this way. We're not at the end yet, but we're much. This is a really good conversation and great meeting. So thanks, Chief.
And thank you, Tony. He's still there. He's gone. All right.
Okay. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te ata whae tō tātou ariki me te aroha o te atua me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, amene.
Thank you, Chair.
Right.